Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE into a kingdom that looked powerful on the surface but was quietly weakening from within. Egypt was no longer the independent empire it had once been. It was ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family descended from one of Alexander the Great's generals. Though they wore the crown of the pharaohs, their culture, language, and traditions were foreign to the land they governed. Rome watched Egypt closely, seeing it less as a sovereign power and more as a valuable prize. The royal court in Alexandria was a dangerous place. Power was never secure, even for those born into it. Brothers and sisters married to preserve the bloodline, yet betrayed one another to survive. Assassinations, exile, and political manipulation were common tools. From childhood, Cleopatra was surrounded by examples of how quickly favor could turn into death. Every smile carried calculation. Every alliance came with a hidden cost. Unlike many rulers before her, Cleopatra received an exceptional education. She studied history, philosophy, astronomy, medicine, and mathematics. More importantly, she mastered language. Cleopatra learned to speak Egyptian fluently, something rare among her Greek predecessors. She also spoke Latin and several Eastern languages, allowing her to communicate directly with diplomats, merchants, and soldiers. This ability gave her a quiet advantage. She could speak to people without intermediaries, without distortion. Alexandria itself shaped her mind. It was a city of scholars and sailors, poets and generals. The great library stood as a monument to human knowledge, while ships from across the Mediterranean filled the harbor. Ideas flowed as freely as goods. Yet beneath this brilliance lay tension. Egypt's wealth attracted envy, and Rome's influence grew stronger each year. Cleopatra's rise to power began earlier than she might have wished. When her father, Ptolemy XII, died, the throne of Egypt passed to her and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. According to tradition, they were forced into marriage, not out of affection, but to legitimize their rule. Cleopatra was still a teenager, yet already more experienced, educated, and politically aware than her brother. This imbalance would soon become dangerous. At first, Cleopatra attempted to rule jointly, presenting herself as a stabilizing figure. She appeared on official documents alone, emphasized her connection to the Egyptian people, and positioned herself as the true voice of authority. This alarmed the courtiers surrounding Ptolemy XIII, who feared losing their influence. Quietly, they turned the young king against his sister. Power shifted quickly. Cleopatra was accused of overstepping her role and undermining tradition. Within a short time, she was stripped of authority and forced into exile. Removed from Alexandria, she found herself alone, without an army, without wealth, and without formal power. Many rulers would have disappeared at this point. Cleopatra did not. Exile became her transformation. Away from the court, she gathered loyal supporters and studied her enemies carefully. She observed Rome's growing involvement in Egypt and understood that the future of her throne would not be decided by Egyptian politics alone. Rome held the real power, and Cleopatra knew she would need Roman favor to survive. While Egypt descended into chaos, Roman civil war spilled into the eastern Mediterranean. Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria, pursuing his rival Pompey. The city became a stage for global power, and Cleopatra saw her opportunity. Rather than waiting for events to unfold, she acted. In one of the most calculated decisions of her life, Cleopatra arranged to meet Caesar in secret. Stripped of royal status, but armed with intelligence and courage, she placed herself directly. Cleopatra's meeting with Julius Caesar changed the course of her life and Egypt's future. Arriving in Alexandria as an exile, she understood that persuasion would matter more than force. Caesar was not interested in Egyptian tradition or royal titles. He cared about stability, loyalty, and control. Cleopatra spoke to him not as a defeated queen, but as a ruler who understood the realities of power. She presented Egypt as a valuable ally rather than a prize to be seized. Calm, articulate, and informed, she demonstrated her intelligence and political awareness. She spoke in languages Caesar respected, addressed Roman interests directly, and offered herself as the solution to Egypt's instability. Caesar listened. Supporting Cleopatra meant confronting Ptolemy XIII and his advisors. Tension in Alexandria escalated into open conflict. Roman soldiers clashed with Egyptian forces, and the city descended into violence. During this struggle, the Great Library suffered damage, a quiet tragedy overshadowed by war. Eventually, Ptolemy XIII drowned while fleeing battle, leaving Cleopatra victorious. Cleopatra was restored to the throne, ruling alongside another younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, in name only. Real power rested firmly with her. Caesar remained in Egypt for months, ensuring stability and strengthening their alliance. Their relationship produced a son, Caesarion, whom Cleopatra presented as Caesar's heir in Egypt. Yet this alliance came with risks. Cleopatra's position depended heavily on Roman favor. While she ruled Egypt, Rome still watched closely. When Caesar returned to Rome, Cleopatra followed, entering the city not as a conqueror, but as a symbol of foreign power and ambition. She lived near Caesar, observed Roman politics, and learned how empire truly functioned. Cleopatra was no longer only Egypt's queen. She had become a figure on the Roman stage, admired by some, feared by others, and carefully calculating her next move. Part 4. Cleopatra's time in Rome was both revealing and dangerous. She witnessed the heart of Roman power, a city driven by ambition, rivalry, and unspoken fear. Caesar ruled in all but name, and many senators resented his authority. Cleopatra understood quickly that Rome was unstable, held together by tradition rather than trust. While she remained close to Caesar, she also observed his enemies, sensing how fragile his position truly was. In 44 BCE, everything changed. Julius Caesar was assassinated in the Senate. The news reached Cleopatra like a sudden collapse of the ground beneath her. Her protection was gone. Her political anchor had vanished. Rome erupted into uncertainty, and Cleopatra realized she was now exposed in a city that no longer tolerated her presence. She left Rome quietly and returned to Egypt. Soon after, Ptolemy XIV died under suspicious circumstances, and Cleopatra elevated her son Caesarion as co-ruler. Egypt once again stood under her direct control, but the world around her had shifted. Rome descended into civil war, and new men rose to power. Among them was Mark Antony. Unlike Caesar, Antony was emotional, charismatic, and deeply ambitious. He was tasked with overseeing Rome's eastern territories, including Egypt. Cleopatra knew another alliance would be necessary. Survival once again demanded calculation rather than hesitation. When Cleopatra and Antony finally met, she did not arrive as a supplicant. She arrived as a queen. Her entrance was theatrical, deliberate, and unforgettable. She presented herself not just as a ruler, but as a symbol of Egypt's wealth and power. Antony was captivated. This alliance was built on desire, ambition, and mutual need. Cleopatra gained protection. Antony gained resources. Together, they would challenge Rome itself, unaware of how brutally history would judge their choices. Cleopatra's alliance with Mark Antony reshaped the balance of power in the Mediterranean. Unlike her relationship with Caesar, this bond was deeply personal as well as political. Antony was drawn to Cleopatra's intelligence, confidence, and presence. Cleopatra, in turn, recognized Antony as a man who could defend Egypt against Roman threats. Their partnership quickly became inseparable from their ambitions. Together, they formed a powerful court in the East. Alexandria once again became a center of influence, wealth, and spectacle. Cleopatra and Antony presented themselves as divine figures, blending Egyptian and Greek symbolism to legitimize their rule. This display was not vanity alone. It was propaganda, designed to project strength and inevitability. Their union produced children and strengthened their shared vision of an Eastern empire that rivaled Rome. Antony granted territories to Cleopatra and her heirs, a decision that shocked Roman elites. To many in Rome, Cleopatra was no longer an ally. She was a threat, portrayed as a foreign queen manipulating a Roman general. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, seized this narrative. He framed the conflict not as a civil war, but as a moral crusade against Cleopatra's influence. Antony was depicted as a traitor seduced by the East. Public opinion shifted. Rome prepared for war. Cleopatra understood the danger but did not retreat. She committed Egypt's wealth and navy to Antony's cause. The final confrontation loomed. Beneath the luxury and ceremony, fear grew quietly. Cleopatra had gambled everything once again. The fate of Egypt now depended on a single, irreversible outcome. The conflict between Antony and Octavian reached its breaking point at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Cleopatra and Antony faced a disciplined Roman force loyal to Octavian. Though Egypt possessed wealth and ships, their alliance suffered from poor coordination and internal doubt. The battle unfolded slowly, heavy with tension, as fleets maneuvered across the sea. At a critical moment, Cleopatra's ships withdrew from the fight. Whether this was a strategic decision or an act of fear remains debated. Antony followed her, abandoning the battlefield. Their retreat shattered morale and handed Octavian a decisive victory. Actium was not only a military defeat, it was the collapse of a dream. Octavian advanced toward Egypt methodically. Alexandria fell with little resistance. Antony, isolated and humiliated, believed Cleopatra had betrayed him. In despair, he took his own life. Mortally wounded, he was brought to Cleopatra, dying in her arms. The empire they had imagined dissolved in silence. Cleopatra was captured alive. Octavian intended to parade her through Rome as a symbol of conquest. For Cleopatra, this fate was unbearable. She had ruled as a queen, negotiated with emperors, and shaped history through intellect and will. She would not become a trophy. In 30 BCE, Cleopatra chose death. According to tradition, she ended her life through poison, possibly by the bite of an asp. The exact method remains uncertain, adding to her mystery. With her death, Egypt became a Roman province. Caesarion was executed, and the Ptolemaic dynasty ended forever. Cleopatra did not fall quietly. Her final act denied Rome complete victory. Even in death, she chose her own ending. Cleopatra's death marked the end of an era, but it did not end her story. In Rome, Octavian transformed victory into legitimacy. He returned as Augustus, the first emperor, presenting Egypt not as a conquered land, but as a personal possession of the Roman state. With this act, Rome secured its grain supply and cemented its dominance over the Mediterranean. Cleopatra, however, became something more enduring than a defeated queen. Roman writers shaped her image to serve political needs. She was portrayed as dangerous, seductive, and manipulative, a foreign woman who nearly corrupted Rome's greatest men. This narrative justified Rome's conquest and softened the reality that Egypt had fallen through strategy rather than weakness. Yet beyond Roman propaganda, Cleopatra's true legacy endured quietly. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, the final ruler to resist Rome through diplomacy, intelligence, and ambition. She ruled not through brute force, but through understanding how power moved across cultures and empires. Her education, linguistic skill, and political awareness set her apart from nearly every ruler of her time. Cleopatra's story survived through contradiction. She was both admired and condemned, romanticized and vilified. Artists, poets, and historians reimagined her endlessly, each version reflecting the fears and desires of its era. The woman herself remained elusive, hidden beneath layers of myth. In the end, Cleopatra was not simply a lover of powerful men or a tragic figure. She was a strategist navigating a collapsing world. Her life revealed how intelligence and courage could challenge empire, even if they could not ultimately stop it. Her silence after death spoke louder than Rome's triumph. Cleopatra's influence extended far beyond her lifetime. Her life became a symbol of intelligence, ambition, and the complexities of leadership in a male-dominated world. Scholars, historians, and storytellers have long debated her decisions, alliances, and the reasons behind her enduring fame. She was not merely a queen. She was a political mind, a diplomat, and a ruler who understood the delicate balance between power and perception. Her use of language, culture, and symbolism allowed her to negotiate with the greatest powers of the Mediterranean. By speaking Egyptian to her people and Greek or Latin to foreign leaders, she controlled narratives and built loyalty. Every gesture, every word, and every alliance was deliberate, designed to strengthen her position and protect Egypt. Even after her death, Cleopatra shaped history. Rome absorbed Egypt, yet her legacy persisted. The city of Alexandria, her court, and the myths surrounding her life inspired generations. Leaders studied her methods. Poets and playwrights dramatized her life. Historians analyzed her strategy. Cleopatra became more than a ruler. She became a story about ambition, intellect, and the costs of power. Her life demonstrates that survival and influence often require more than armies. They require foresight, education, and the courage to act decisively in moments of uncertainty. Cleopatra's story remains a testament to the enduring impact of a leader who understood both her people and her enemies, who balanced diplomacy with daring, and who left a mark on the world that continues to fascinate centuries after her death. Cleopatra's story is also a story of survival against impossible odds. From the beginning, her life was surrounded by danger, family betrayals, political intrigue, and the looming presence of Rome. Yet she managed to rise above exile, reclaim her throne, and forge alliances with the most powerful men in the Mediterranean. Her ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances set her apart from other rulers of her era. Her reign was not only about maintaining power, but also about protecting her people. Egypt depended on her diplomacy and strategic vision. By aligning with Julius Caesar, she secured her throne and strengthened Egypt's position in the Mediterranean. Later, with Mark Antony, she attempted to create a balance of power that could challenge Rome itself, though history records the tragic end of this ambition. Cleopatra's intelligence extended beyond politics into culture and religion. She presented herself as a divine ruler, embodying the goddess Isis, linking her authority to religious belief in the eyes of her people. This reinforced her legitimacy, not through force alone, but through cultural influence, showing her understanding of the deeper currents that shaped loyalty and obedience. Her death marked the end of an era, but not the end of her influence. Stories of her cunning, beauty, and brilliance spread throughout Rome and beyond. Artists, writers, and historians continued to portray her life for centuries, turning her into a legend. Cleopatra's life demonstrates that leadership is as much about strategy, perception, and intellect as it is about birthright or military might. Her legacy endures as a testament to resilience, ambition, and the enduring power of a single extraordinary life. After Cleopatra's death, the world she had known changed forever, but her influence remained. Egypt became a Roman province, its independence lost, yet the lessons of her rule persisted. Cleopatra had shown that intelligence, diplomacy, and careful calculation could preserve power even in the most dangerous circumstances. Her life became an example of how strategy and vision could rival brute force. Roman writers, poets, and historians shaped her image to serve their own purposes. She was often depicted as a seductress, a foreign queen who corrupted Roman leaders. Yet beneath this portrayal lay a more complex reality. Cleopatra was a shrewd politician, a learned ruler, and a master of diplomacy. She had navigated family betrayals, civil wars, and foreign threats with remarkable skill. Her relationship with Mark Antony also left a lasting mark on Rome and history. Their alliance demonstrated the potential and peril of personal and political bonds. Through Antony, Cleopatra attempted to create a new balance of power, challenging Rome itself. Their combined strength, however, could not withstand Octavian's strategic patience and the might of the Roman military. Cleopatra's legacy endured through memory, myth, and influence. She became a symbol of ambition, intellect, and the complexities of female leadership in a patriarchal world. Her story reminds us that history is shaped not only by empires and armies, but also by individuals who understand the subtle art of power, perception, and survival. Cleopatra's life remains a timeless lesson in resilience, strategy, and the enduring impact of one extraordinary ruler. Cleopatra's story extends beyond politics and conquest. It is a story of culture, intellect, and influence. She ruled a kingdom at the crossroads of the ancient world, where Greek, Egyptian, and Roman traditions intersected. Her court was a hub of learning, art, and science, reflecting her belief that knowledge and culture were as important as military or political power. She studied philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy, and engaged with scholars and diplomats from across the Mediterranean. Her ability to adapt to different cultural contexts strengthened her rule. In Egypt, she embraced local traditions, presenting herself as the embodiment of the goddess Isis. To the Romans, she displayed familiarity with their politics and values, speaking their language and navigating their alliances with finesse. This duality allowed her to command respect and loyalty from diverse audiences. Even after her death, Cleopatra's life inspired generations. Leaders studied her diplomacy, Generals admired her strategic thinking, and artists immortalized her image. She became a symbol of intelligence, ambition, and the subtle art of governance. Cleopatra demonstrated that power was not merely inherited. It could be cultivated through knowledge, persuasion, and calculated action. Her story teaches that extraordinary individuals can influence the course of history not only through battles or conquest, but through wisdom, strategy, and vision. Cleopatra remains a figure whose life resonates across centuries, reminding us that intellect and courage are timeless tools of leadership. Cleopatra's life was a delicate balance between ambition, strategy, and survival. From her earliest years, she understood that being a ruler required more than royal blood. She needed intelligence, foresight, and the ability to navigate dangerous political waters. Every decision, from alliances with Julius Caesar to her partnership with Mark Antony, was calculated to preserve her throne and protect Egypt's sovereignty. Her command of languages and culture set her apart. Speaking Egyptian to her people and Greek and Latin to foreign leaders allowed her to connect directly, bypassing intermediaries and reducing miscommunication. Cleopatra's understanding of human psychology, of fear, loyalty, and desire, was as much a tool of governance as her wealth or armies. She mastered influence before the word was even defined. Despite her brilliance, Cleopatra's life was shaped by the forces around her. Rome's expansion, family rivalries, and the ambitions of men like Caesar, Antony, and Octavian constrained her options. She maneuvered within these limits, using diplomacy, spectacle, and intellect to assert control. Her decisions carried immense risk, but also demonstrated her resilience and courage. Even after her death, Cleopatra's story continued to inspire. She became a symbol of leadership, strategy, and ambition in a world dominated by men. Her life shows that intelligence, determination, and careful calculation can challenge even the most powerful empires. Cleopatra's legacy is timeless, a reminder that extraordinary vision can leave an enduring mark on history. Cleopatra's influence extended far beyond her lifetime, shaping both history and imagination. Her life demonstrated that leadership was not solely about armies or wealth, but about strategy, intelligence, and the ability to navigate complex human relationships. She had survived exile, civil wars, and the constant scrutiny of Rome, proving that intellect and foresight could rival physical power. Even in death, Cleopatra's story continued to captivate. Roman writers portrayed her as a seductress or a foreign threat, yet these accounts only partially reflect her true abilities. She was a ruler who understood the nuances of diplomacy, culture, and perception. By presenting herself as the embodiment of the goddess Isis, she reinforced her legitimacy and inspired loyalty among her people. She balanced political necessity with personal presence, ensuring that her rule left a lasting impression. Cleopatra's alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were more than romantic or opportunistic. They were calculated moves to secure Egypt's sovereignty and protect her lineage. She negotiated with men who controlled empires, understood their ambitions, and used her knowledge to her advantage. Her political acumen allowed her to survive situations that would have destroyed many others. Her story teaches that influence and survival often depend on understanding human nature, timing, and perception. Cleopatra's life reminds us that power is multifaceted, that intelligence can be as decisive as force, and that a single person can shape the destiny of nations. Through her choices, her courage, and her vision, Cleopatra remains an enduring figure, a queen whose life continues to fascinate, educate, and inspire centuries after her death. Cleopatra's legacy is timeless, echoing through history, art, and culture long after the fall of the Ptolemaic dynasty. She was more than a queen known for beauty or romance. She was a strategist, a linguist, and a ruler who understood the subtleties of power. Her ability to combine intelligence with charisma allowed her to navigate threats from Rome, family rivalries, and political instability, securing her place as one of history's most remarkable leaders. Even after Egypt became a Roman province, Cleopatra's life continued to influence thought and imagination. Writers, historians, and artists turned her story into legend, exploring her ambition, her intellect, and her courage. She became a symbol of resilience, showing that leadership is defined not only by titles, but by action, foresight, and the ability to influence those around you. Her alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony illustrate the delicate interplay of personal ambition and political necessity. Each decision she made reflected careful calculation, whether to protect her throne, secure her son's future, or preserve Egypt's autonomy. Cleopatra's life teaches that extraordinary vision and determination can leave a lasting mark, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Ultimately, Cleopatra's story is a lesson in power, strategy, and survival. She remains an enduring figure who captivates the imagination, reminding us that history is shaped not only by empires and armies, but by the intelligence, courage, and choices of singular individuals. Her life continues to inspire and intrigue, a testament to the extraordinary impact of one woman who dared to rule against the odds. Even centuries later, Cleopatra's story continues to resonate because it is more than a tale of politics and conquest. It is a story about vision, intelligence, and human ambition. She demonstrated that leadership could be exercised through intellect, diplomacy, and strategic action as much as through armies or wealth. Her ability to adapt, influence, and survive in a male-dominated world set her apart from rulers of any era. Cleopatra's life illustrates the delicate balance between personal ambition and the needs of a nation. Every alliance she formed, every gesture of diplomacy, and every public appearance was calculated to strengthen her authority and protect Egypt. She understood that perception was power, and that knowledge of human nature was as valuable as any army. Her story also shows the cost of greatness. Despite her brilliance, Cleopatra could not ultimately escape the forces of empire, ambition, and fate. Yet her courage, intellect, and resilience ensured that her name would endure far longer than the walls of Alexandria or the Ptolemaic throne she once occupied. Today, Cleopatra remains a symbol of extraordinary leadership, the embodiment of strategy, intellect, and determination. Her life reminds us that even in the most dangerous and uncertain circumstances, a single individual, armed with knowledge, courage, and vision, can leave a lasting mark on history. Cleopatra's legacy endures, not merely as a queen, but as a timeless example of how one person can shape the course of nations and inspire generations. Cleopatra's story concludes not with her death, but with the lasting influence she left on the world. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, the final ruler of a dynasty that had lasted for centuries. Her reign marked the end of an era, but her legacy endured, shaping the imagination of writers, artists, and historians for millennia. She became a symbol of intelligence, ambition, and the subtle art of leadership. Her life demonstrates that true power extends beyond armies and wealth. Cleopatra's ability to navigate politics, culture, and diplomacy allowed her to maintain authority in a world dominated by larger empires. She mastered communication, perception, and strategy, showing that intellect and foresight can rival force. Her alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony illustrate her skill in balancing personal relationships with political necessity, revealing the careful calculation behind every move she made. Even today, Cleopatra inspires fascination and study. Her story reminds us that history is shaped not only by battles and conquests, but by the vision and courage of individuals. She left a legacy of resilience, intelligence, and leadership that transcends time. Cleopatra remains an enduring figure, a queen whose life continues to captivate, teach, and inspire centuries after she ruled the ancient world. Cleopatra's enduring influence is reflected not only in history books, but also in art, literature, and popular imagination. Generations of storytellers have depicted her as a figure of intrigue, intelligence, and power, blending myth with reality. She became an archetype of the clever and courageous ruler, a queen who could command respect and inspire loyalty even in the face of overwhelming odds. Her life was a masterclass in political acumen. Cleopatra understood that power was rarely absolute, and that survival required foresight, adaptability, and careful alliances. She used language, culture, and symbolism as tools of governance, speaking to both her people and foreign powers in ways that strengthened her position. Through these strategies, she maintained authority in a kingdom beset by internal divisions and external pressures. Even after her death, Cleopatra's story shaped perceptions of leadership and female power. She demonstrated that intellect, diplomacy, and courage could achieve results as lasting as armies or conquests. Her decisions, her alliances, and her resilience continue to offer lessons in strategy, statecraft, and personal agency. Ultimately, Cleopatra's legacy is a reminder that history is shaped not only by empires or battles, but by the vision, intelligence, and determination of individuals. She remains an iconic figure whose life resonates across centuries, offering insight into power, influence, and the enduring impact of one extraordinary leader.